Chicken Run is actually like really attractive now that you look back at it. You know, the lady from Chicken Run that was like, I forgot what she did, but people are saying she's attractive now on Twitter. The little clay stop motion character.
Oh, thanks.
Round one.
Thanks. Do you want to back?
No.
Frozen 2. Oh!
My name is Marcel Patterson, and I play the character of Die Atlas. Something that I was always drawn to in the script was reading dialogue that felt like it had no place being spoken on Earth. And I really dig that because up until that point, we were only doing short films that were very contained and very personal. And we just felt like it was time to branch out and experiment what we were possibly capable of, which is another reason why I was proud to don the robes and buzz my head for the role, because we are going above and beyond to make our limited resources feel like another world, feel like a galaxy far, far away. So when it came to understanding the dialogue, it was very bizarre because even as a massive Star Wars fan, you read some of this dialogue and you hear it and you're just like, where, what, who? But like, isn't that all Star Wars is? We all just take it for face value because we're building that world around us and we just let it take us to school. And I feel like our film does that.
Yeah, that's perfect. That's beautiful. Oh. Oh, that's fun.
Yeah. We like,
I like
I'm
that.
like kind of nervous around here. We had a lot more room.
They're in far enough that if you hit them, they're not going to shatter. So.
Also, we
and
kinda-
Marcus, at this point, what I want you to be doing is like coming in like hard, you know, and that hard, you know, really like lumber. You know what I mean? Like give it some weight. You know what I mean? Not just like really, you know, you're this dark thing.
My name is Marcus Patterson, and I play Hayes Atlas, but more known in this film as the Dark Entity. From my perspective and my interpretation of the character, he is desperate and afraid, and he wants to live. He didn't get a chance to live, because up until this point of the film, he had basically just been living in oblivion, and because he had died at birth. But he received an opportunity through the dark side to have a second chance at life. And I feel like the parasitic attachment of the dark side to Hayes in the afterlife amplified his desperation and his will to want to survive in the world. And I think that turned his desperation more into anger and hatred, and he'll do whatever it takes to, you know, become a part of the land of the living.
Stop. Oh, actually, that would be, so if you travel behind, right?
Yeah, the logical step might be.
And keep going around and then, oh, I don't know. Could you come back around? I'm just trying to think I could include like one of those. Oh. I just don't know.
So he can kip.
Oh, let me see if I can do
Oh,
that.
he can
Yeah, one
kip.
hand. Yeah, you can do it one-handed.
Oh, come on.
Oh my!
Oh my
Yeah.
God.
We'll work on it.
No big deal.
All right, Marcel, your turn.
I am Kat Stoneback, and I played Oris Sai. I was always super into Star Wars as a child. It was like the kids on the playground played like My Little Pony or Star Wars, and the girls played My Little Pony. And I didn't watch My Little Pony, but I did watch Star Wars, so that was like my area. So when I was invited to do this project, I was super excited. And when I read the script, I was really excited because you guys did such a good job of writing a character who I could really relate to, finding just representation in such casual ways, because nobody is gay or bisexual or a woman to make a statement. You just are what you are, and it makes no sense that in a galaxy far, far away that there aren't LGBTQ people. So it honestly makes it more realistic and graspable for me. Keeping those truths in these sort of realms, fantasy realms.
the inspiration behind Trial of the Fallen Jedi was really a couple things. We didn't want to do a film that had already been done before. We didn't want to do an original trilogy or prequel type trilogy Star Wars fan film, because we see a lot of that. We wanted to really do something that was based more in the Old Republic, because we felt that was something that doesn't get seen as much. It's something that is sort of popular in like the video games, but hasn't really been touched on. Here's a chance for us to do a completely different story, unrelated to Skywalkers or any original trilogy characters. Here's a chance for us to just really create, a clean slate of unique characters, and we can make them however we want to make them. We can make, they don't even have to be Jedi or Sith, they can be whatever. And that was sort of the fun and inspiration to it, was let's just create whatever it is that we want to create. There's no boundaries, and we don't have to try and piggyback and sort of live up to, I feel like that's the biggest issue, is living up to the expectations of classic characters. Let's just find our own sort of corner of the galaxy and tell a completely different story, because that's sort of what I want to see from Star Wars. And I think the group of us, the small group of filmmakers and actors that worked on this film, we were all in sort of the same mindset of, yeah, let's see something different. Let's see something we haven't ever seen before in Star Wars. There's so many possibilities, and we really haven't, I don't think, explored enough of them. So that was sort of where this film took off. Almost at the end of the fight, maybe we have you maybe adjust like your sleeve or something.
Or like my robe comes off somehow.
Right. And
like the nub shows.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. That way we show something at the end. Because I don't want it to be like, oh, look how
handicap Jedi.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
But it's like, it's not a...
Right.
Because of the
Clearly I'm good.
Well, it's like it doesn't hinder him. That's the idea. And
it's like if you give yourself too much to the saber, there's chances of that.
That's the message he's trying to send to Die. This whole movie is, don't rely on just that.
Right.
Look at me. Yeah, or you'll end up like him in a sense.
My name is Brooks LEIBEE. I was the director of photography on Trial of the Fallen Jedi. I feel like everyone has seen a Star Wars film, but not everyone has made a Star Wars film, so you never know how it feels until you're doing it. And you point a camera at someone with a lightsaber that's all done up in the costume garb, and they're doing swift choreography, things like that, and telling a story in this world. It's very strange, but it's rewarding in a way too, because you get to see how much work there is put into these fantasy stories that a lot of people don't really tend to find much appreciation in, it seems, in the technical side. There's a lot of technical work that goes into this stuff, and there's VFX that's still being worked on, and it's been maybe 6 months since we filmed.
Slow. I thought we were going full speed.
I said slow. Do it again. Slow.
On the first rehearsal, we should basically never go fast.
Yeah,
I want to go fast.
Trying to figure out how to blend my background with rapier sword skills with like the saber skills, and it's still like watching the footage back, I wish I had done less rapier like movements. Oh, the Pattersons, those boys, those twins, when they fight, just the force that they put into their combat is so cool, and I'm jealous of that.
You're actually wailing at each other with this, and it was very interesting with Dalton because on more than one occasion we found ourselves hurting each other, and by each other I mean it was mainly me that was getting whacked.
I guess everyone kind of has a background in fighting with laser swords if you're a kid and you went to Walmart and bought a plastic laser sword, but the swords that we used, they were pretty freaking authentic, expensive, and they were very hefty. And the choreographing process, first one I had was, the fight scene that I had was with MARCEL, Die Atlas, and we were just in our living room and we choreographed it, and we recorded it, we taped it, and we sent it to Michael. Said he loved it. He tweaked it a little bit, and it came out to be the final product that you see on the film. I think it's fantastic. My other favorite fight scene, which is my second fight scene, which is with Kat STONEBACK. She plays Orasai. If I look at the theme of the fight, if you know where Orasai's character ends up, it's almost as if this fight scene represents this character battling darkness, and if you know where her character ends up at the end of the film, it's a little bit pointless and it ends up being inevitable. But the choreographing process was fun. It was very laxed, and yeah, just very thankful that the director gave us the opportunity to do it ourselves.
Man, look at all these trees.
Some cool dunes. Yeah. Tons of little rooms. Nice long hallways.
There was a lot of challenges for this project. First, because the script was easy to do. It's always easy to script a sci-fi project like this, and I say that because it's really easy to write these like kind of big, extravagant sequences and fun things that these cool Jedi can do and things like that. It becomes far more difficult when you have to start be realistic about it, when you have to start grounding it in reality, you have to start getting the props, and where there was no money for this, you know, it was really just out of pocket for pretty much all this. This film is really just a labor of love for all of us that love Star Wars and all things film. So that's a challenge in itself, is how do we make this as authentic as possible while, you know, also trying not to completely empty our bank accounts and not be able to pay our bills because we're buying Star Wars toys essentially. You know, because the lightsabers were very expensive. The costumes, while not as expensive, still quite a few costumes to get. I mean, we built our own robot. You know, the sets are all completely practical. They're real. There's only one sequence of green screen, and it's literally 25 seconds, I think, if even that. So we knew from a filmmaking standpoint that it was going to be just completely old school. It was just going to be whatever we could find, whatever we could use as a set. So there wasn't going to be a lot of digital effects. The only VFX really come from you know, lightsabers, masking, and things like that, rotoscoping.
Oh, look at this. Good job, gentlemen. Oh!
Oh, there he is. Wow.
I was thinking about putting this head on him.
Oh, that's funny.
Just floomp.
That's awesome, dude.
That's his body. Figure out how to do a time lapse on my camera, then it'll be even cooler.
We can just speed it up if you just want to film it.
Alright.
Because usually the easiest way to do it is just like a time wrap.
Mm-hmm.
The robot, while amazing and awesome, as you get to see in the film, ZD is one of my favorite characters of the film, and I'm so glad that I wrote him in. He was such a headache in of himself because we employed Chris Kunk, our character modeler, the original design was actually created by MARCEL Patterson, and we sort of borrowed a little bit of inspiration from J.J. Abrams' Bad Robot, and that's sort of, if you put them side by side, you can see the similarities even down to color. But creating that, getting to that point of having a tangible physical robot was probably 2-3 month process, and that's something you don't really take into consideration when you write the script. You just say, okay, we'll figure out a robot. We're just gonna, this is ZD4. He's in the script, and so again, that's where that reality expectation comes into play. And thankfully, our expectation was, for me, it was exceeded, but getting there was quite a road because we spent a lot of money on materials and sort of failing with the robot. And the first time you see him in the film is not his final version. He's kind of a mess. He's broken in that scene. He'd fallen apart earlier that day, and we sort of duct taped him together. So the first time you see ZD, it's not pretty. And then in the next scene, it looks like he's been upgraded and completely transformed, which is because we have the final version of him. And he's 3D printed, the final version, and that took over a week to print. And then he had to be painted and sanded and things like that. And so thankfully, only his arm broke after we started shooting with him.
Oh my god. Wow.
Woo. Say hi. Say hi, ZD.
And ZD is done. The final puppet for Fallen Jedi. Painted and ready to be Frank Oz.
I'm so excited. Oh.
Oh, I was thinking, what if but what if he was in a bald cap? What do you think?
A ball cap.
Yeah, bald cap.
It's a bald
You
cap.
are definitely mishearing things today, Brooks.
Yeah. Bald cap?
Bald cap, beard.
Looks good.
Ooh.
It could be interesting. Getting a 1.
Oh my gosh, I'm so excited.
Oh, we're ready for the next Star Wars celebration, that's for sure.
On the record?
No, off the record, please. That he's not used to working on statues to this scale. He's used to doing smaller stuff, and then the grinding of the metal and all that stuff. He's never personally done it before.
What does that mean?
What?
Oh my god!
What does that mean?
We were like, Boots ever needs a beatboxer.
He just said, do it, Zach.
You know where to find me. Don't tempt me.
We apparently need to use liquid latex around the
We should have done some practices.
Oh
So
my.
I just have to keep the hood on the whole time, just to hide all the seams.
He was coming down and we were like, oh my god, he's bald.
Yeah, I was like, the camera's probably gonna pick up a lot of the lines. From a distance, not as bad, but. We were all sort of treading some unexplored areas with this film. And I'll start with, the bald cap was something that none of us had really done before. We had a makeup artist. She was excellent. But she had never really done a bald cap before either. So there was a lot of struggling when it came to getting that bald cap perfect. And it still didn't come out perfect because it had to be digitally edited, things like that.
You're doing great over there.
Keep doing what you're doing.
So today's May 4th. But today is an exciting May the 4th because we are filming the
ending sequence of Fallen Jedi, our lovely little short film. We'll be filming at a pretty cool location. It's attached to a land reserve called Wadey's Island. It's fairly untouched. It's also pretty expansive plot of beach. So there's no buildings, barely any light pollution. It's a nice barren setting, and we feel like this is a really unique look for a Star Wars short, one that we haven't really seen. So it's kind of why we're doing it.
Guess what day it is? It's the 4th. That's what it is. Of May.
Where did that lead you? Back to me. Ow.
Lightsaber fighting on a beach, super fun, but super messy. I think my favorite part had to have been when we went out into the warehouse and just messed around. We had a coffee cake muffin that we poured like coffee milk onto to make what he was eating, but just messing around, discovering like the area, like what to mess with, messing around with his props and his like armbands. I think there's so much fun to be had when you just are able to play.
A lot of them were accidental. My favorite shots in the film were like happy accidents. I think my favorite shot in the entire thing is when Di comes up over the dune, and we're just right there with the holocron beam. Love the composition of it. Love that it just keeps going. It feels like a master, but it never cuts until it needs to.
I think overall, the beach scene, even though it's a series of probably 3 or 4 scenes technically combined, I think that was my favorite scene to shoot, just because we'd never really done anything to that magnitude before. We'd shot stuff on a beach, certainly. I mean, we live in Myrtle Beach, so it's not unusual, but we'd never done something quite so complex. Getting it all done, choreographing it all, just seeing it all come together, that experience was, I think, one of the best parts of the project. You know, I think there was some apprehension after that day of like, how's this film gonna go? Is this gonna work? You know, there's a lot of issues when you do a sci-fi project of this, you know, of any magnitude, but especially of Star Wars magnitude. You're gonna encounter issues and problems. But that scene just felt like everything sort of came together once, you know, the effects and the editing were all done, and the location was perfect. You know, we got some really striking shots, basically shooting on a beach at midnight. It seems easier said than done, and it's really not. But that, I think, is still, you know, I'll carry that with me for a while, especially because it took us 2 hours just to get to the shoot, even though it was only 20 minutes away from us. Thanks, Brooks.
In ancient ways, and you would burn your own son.
Yeah, like these are the ones like to be kind of match.
That's what Master Atan has told you.
Master.
However.
Yeah, so I started out as like really dark and eerie, sinister, and then like slightly less sinister. Like he's trying to
more like
convince him. Right. Yeah. Like when you see his face, it's just more reverb, like studio reverb. And then right at the end, you just hear his normal voice. Like he's like, "Die, wait." You don't hear any of the echo or anything. So
it's almost like the deep voice.
Yes.
Is the holocron speaking?
Right. So yeah, it's supposed to like basically, because he has this vision early on in the film, and he's drawn to this holocron, and that's basically what's speaking to him. So it needs to just almost be this like disembodied, because it's a dark entity is what he's facing essentially. So even Marcus will have effects on him, like you won't be able to see his face properly.
But because I was gonna say, you told me last night that his brother died.
Yeah.
But he's
at
like
childbirth.
But he's in the Force, the dark side.
Right.
Okay.
on top of doing, 10,000 frames plus worth of lightsabers and fixing bald caps and rotoscoping matte lines and taking things out of a shot, you also have things like reflections and text that needs to be removed and rain that needs to be added. And the more you do these fantastical projects, these sci-fi type films, it just sort of lends itself to more fantastical elements. Unlike doing a simple dialogue, it just continues to balloon in terms of effects, because you can sit there and literally, tweak every frame and go, I wish this was blue, and I wish, this had more rain, or I wish his hair was this, and his robe needs that, and this lights, you could literally, and you can go on and on and on, as I am. So the problems never really end per se. You just have to get to a point where you're like, yeah, this is good. We can work with this.
I have more or less like an obsession or a fetish when it comes to music. It's like, it's purely film score. I practically study this stuff. So it's like being able to go into a world that you've only listened to, and just start orchestrating, kind of delving more into the on-paper side of a Star Wars score was interesting. You learn how many instruments are in a traditional Star Wars score. Aside from like Clone Wars and Revenge of the Sith, they're really small orchestras, especially in the new trilogy. Really compact stuff, but they have found a way to make it sound bigger. And that was kind of my goal with my parts of the score here. It's having as minimal as you can sound as big as the traditional Williams scores, or even like Gordy Hobb with the Battlefront scores, and it was a completely different building experience, and that was also probably like a 4-month process of just working it out. I think some of my favorite tracks are in this movie that I've done.
Yes, we've not quite like revealed
pointed it out.
Yeah, revealed if it's actually his brother or not. I like to believe that it is his brother, because the way we've sort of twisted the story, something happens at the end of this fight, and then his brother ends up possessing Kat's character, and then she ends up doing some terrible things. So there's some really cool twists to it at the end of it.
Okay.
Which would set up if we ever got to do another one, which probably we won't, but it leaves the opportunity for us to do another story if we want to. Like this ends on a huge cliffhanger, basically.
As you can imagine, for less than $10,000, a lot can go wrong when you're shooting a local Star Wars movie and all you have is, sheer determination and love for the intellectual property of Star Wars, and you just make the best of what you have. We didn't rely on any donations, really. We had talked about that in the beginning, but we realized we gotta give people something to believe in before we ask to give them something, to give us something. So I feel like this film was a good stepping stone towards that direction if we wanted to explore sequels. But you can really see the heart and soul seep out into our, performances, our direction, our cinematography, our music even. So yeah, you could feel this the sense of it becoming a homemade Star Wars movie makes it feel that much more like Star Wars.
Yeah, especially because where this thing ends, visually, narratively, and musically, I am super in to see where this story goes.
Oh, with the sequel. So, as I've mentioned 32,000 times before, I want to see Aura's girlfriend, because I think that's cute and I think that's interesting. I really want to see more of the twins. I want more exploration into what was the backstory between those two. I think Aura and her dark side and succumbing to that, leaning into that, along with our Sith holocron and Sith friends.
Would I love to do more of them? Absolutely. You know, it's something that I'm never going to say no to more Star Wars, especially our own properties and things like that we create. So I love these characters. I think that, you know, as I wrote them, they were not blank slates, but they were pretty open as in terms of like what they were. And I felt like my cast did a really good job of bringing these characters way off the page and giving them lives that were really interesting. And they you know, went way beyond whatever I thought I was writing. So for me to be able to see these characters go further and do more interesting things would be a dream come true, obviously. So yeah, I'd say there's definitely a strong possibility for a sequel on something like this.
Okay, team.
All right.
1, 2, 3, Star Wars.
Aw,
Sorry, Don. I had to save money.
It's my arm that I don't have. It's actually holding this.
I wonder if we could get you some...